Argentina, the government will implement a series of measures aimed at stabilizing currency exchange rates. In Turkey, the presidential elections will be decided in a runoff after incumbent Recep Tayyip Erdogan pulled ahead of his chief challenger but fell short of an outright victory. And thousands of Palestinians marked the 15th as the 75th anniversary of the Nakba of 1948, when nearly 700,000 indigenous Palestinians were ethnically cleansed from their homes by Zionist militias. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm your new anchor, Heidy Maurell, from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The government of Argentina decided to implement a series of measures aimed at stabilizing the different exchange rates present in the country's economies. The Ministry of Economy announced that it will increase the interest rate from 91 to 97% per year to make a peso loans more attractive and accelerate agreements with multilateral organizations. Besides these measures, extra initiatives will be taken to sustain the level of consumption and activity. The entity indicated that the intervention of the foreign exchange markets is complemented with a series of announcements aimed at slowing down the rise in prices, for which the central market will import fresh and non-perishable staple products with zero tariff. Moreover, the Minister Sergio Massa declared that they will accelerate negotiations with the International Monetary Fund and China to obtain the necessary dollars to curb speculation and calm the exchange market. In this context, Argentina's soaring inflation continues to take an important toll on the most vulnerable sectors of the society. Inflation in April continued to rise beyond the government's prediction, as it reached 1,008.8% year-on-year, and prices increased 8.4% up from the previous month. This is almost 1 point higher than the last number reported in March. Due to the heavily increasing high inflation, the cost of family basket has doubled in the last year, meaning an Argentine family needs more money to cover its basic needs every month. According to the National Statistics Institute index last report, 11.5 million Argentinians, that is 39.2% of the population, live below the poverty lines, as they are unable to cover their basic needs. Ecuador's parliament meets on Sunday to renew its leadership. The new board of directors will govern the remaining 2 years of its current legislature. This process of term renewal in the National Assembly takes place amid the call for an impeachment trial against Guillermo Lasso for corruption. The parliamentary body stated that the legislators must appoint the first and second vice presidents, as well as 4 members of the Legislative Administration Council, responsible for planning legislative activities and establishing priorities for dealing with the legal bills. They will also appoint the Secretary General and the Pro-Secretary and swear in the new members of the Council of Citizen Participation and Social Controls, elected by popular vote last February. The Colombian and Venezuelan foreign ministers began coordinating efforts to recover the bodies of hundreds of Colombian citizens murdered by paramilitaries. In a statement, the head of the Colombian diplomacy, Álvaro Leiva, said his office had agreed with his Venezuelan counterpart, Iván Gil, to provide prompt and effective institutional mechanisms to locate the remains of the victims buried in the Venezuelan territory, as recently indicated by the former commander of the paramilitary group, Salvatore Mancuso, during his appearance before the Special Jurisdiction for Peace. Although Mancuso speaks of 200 bodies, the Colombian foreign ministers assure that they are more.
It is something that really moves people. It distressed me very deeply because it was being somewhat forgotten there. I have been involved in the process for many years. I was never a high commissioner. I always did it on my own. And on that occasion I decided to come the rumor was known. It was there in people's mind, in the whole community, and I decided to come. And indeed, it could be verified. And today we confirm it through Mr. Mancuso's testimony. And I think it is an impressive, especially that this is not the only crematorium.
The members of the Commission for Access to the Truth, a historical clarification and promotion of justice for serious human rights violations between 1965 and 1990 will arrive in Guerrero in a few weeks. In a state, the remains of those executed in 1971 will be exhumed. The relatives of the victims for former President Luis Echevarria Alvarez and his military junta are filing a complaint. During their intervention in assemblies summoned by the Union of Forestry and Agricultural Ejidos of Guerreros, in which they recalled the tortures, humiliations, and violations to which their relatives were subjected to, and the consequences of these events, they reiterated their right to demand justice and reparation. In Mexico, 26 people died in a traffic accident on Sunday on the Zaragoza-Victoria Highway in the state of Tamaulipas. The accident occurred when a trailer and a private van adapted for passengers transport collided. Officials from the Attorney General's office say the death of two could rise. Therefore, local authorities have not yet confirmed a definite number of fatalities. Among the deceased, there are men, women, and children who have not yet been identified, due to the severity of the damage caused by the fire that erupted after the accident. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres arrived on Sunday in Jamaica for talks on the situation in Haiti. During his the two-day visit, Guterres will meet with Jamaican Prime Minister Andrew Holness. High on the agenda is what he has referred to as an extenuation crisis in Haiti. Since Kingston has assumed a leadership role as mediator on the situation in the neighboring country, the UN Secretary hopes to channel the involvement of the international community through the Jamaican Premier. In addition, the climate issue will also be on the agenda. And let's take a short break, but first remember you can follow us on TikTok account at teleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Turkey's presidential elections will be decided in a runoff, of elections officials said on Monday, after incumbent Recep Tayyip Erdogan pulled ahead of his chief challenger, but fell short of an outright victory that could extend his rule into a third decade.
It has been observed that no candidate has been able to qualify for the election stipulated in Article 4 of Law Number 6271, and it has been decided by our board to hold the second round of elections on Sunday, May 28, 2023, according to the previously announced election calendar. It was seen that Mr. Recep Tayyip Erdogan's vote was 49.54%. Likewise, if we accept that all 35,874 foreign country votes were given to Mr. Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, it was seen that he received 44.85% of the votes.
The European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen congratulated Turkish voters on their large turnout in the first round of the country's national elections, hailing it as a win for democracy.
I think the massive turnout in these elections is really good news. It's good news because it's a very clear sign that the Turkish people are committed to exercising their democratic rights to go and vote, and that they value the democratic institutions. This is a big, big win of yesterday.
In Spain's capital, Madrid, one person died and 24 others suffered smoke poisoning after a fire broke out in a hospital. The fire at the San Carlos Clinical Hospital started in the early hours of the morning local time. A 68-year-old patient died from the smoke and 70 were evacuated. 24 others required medical attention, according to the local media. The fire started in the room of the patient who died of intoxication, but investigations has only just begun. In Thailand, the victory of the Move Forward opposition party seems imminent following the scrutiny of over 97% of the votes, that is 14 million votes, which gives them 141 seats in parliament. In view of the results, the leader of the opposition party has called for a government coalition to guarantee a majority in parliament. According to the aspiring prime minister, they could secure 309 seats out of 500 in the chamber. Still, this will not be enough for him to become prime minister, since his elections also involves the 250 senators elected by the former military junta. Experts agree that the government formation process will be a demanding one. On Monday, Chinese Premier Li Qiang met with the visiting Eritrean President Isaias Afwerki in Beijing, with both sides planning to enhance cooperation in infrastructure and blue economy. The Chinese premier said that the political mutual trust between the two countries has been consolidated, and cooperation has become increasingly close since the establishment of diplomatic relations between China and Eritrea 30 years ago. Li added the two sides should deepen the alignment of the development strategies, promote cooperation in infrastructure and other fields, cultivate new growth points and cooperation such as the blue economy, and closely cooperate in regional and international affairs. For its part, Isaias and Eritrea highly appreciate China's important contribution to maintaining world peace and opening up a new path of human modernization. The Eritrean president added his nation is willing to write a new chapter in Africa-China friendship and build a fair and just international order. Russian artillery hit Ukrainian weapons and ammunition depots in the west and center of the country. The Defense Ministry confirmed on Monday that its precision-guided weapons struck tanks in Ternopil and Dnipropetrovsk. Kiev amasses into depots equipment provided by Western countries. In the same operation, the Russian authorities reported that more than 400 casualties in the enemy army. The Defense Ministry also confirmed the dismantling of two sabotage groups and the resistance of their forces in Artemovsk or Bakhmut for Ukraine. The United Kingdom agreed to supply a new military package to Ukraine, including combat drones and air defense missiles. The announcement was made during a visit by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to the United Kingdom as part of a tour of Western Europe to seek support from the EU bloc's governments. According to the British government statement, it was agreed to send hundreds of air defense missiles and unmanned aerial systems, as well as a long-range drone crew with the capacity to attack from more than 200 kilometers. UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak confirmed that the equipment will be delivered within a month in order to support the Ukrainian forces' offensive. Within the framework of this tour in Europe, the governments of France and Germany also expressed their support for Ukraine. The Russian government has urged the United States to complete the elimination of its remaining chemical arsenals as soon as possible. The head of the Russian delegation to a session of the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, Kirill Lysogorsky, noted that 99% of the chemical weapons stockpiles declared by the Convention signatory states have been verifiably destroyed, and that the chemical plants for the manufacture of such agents has been dismantled. However, Washington continues to postpone the total destruction of its arsenals, even though U.S. President Joe Biden said his country has ready to complete such destruction. The United States is the only country among the signatories to the Convention on the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons that maintains an impressive stoplight on toxic agents for military use. teleSUR English continues to grow. You can now tune in from 33 different African countries through StarSat. Dial 461 and enjoy our Latin American alternative broadcast. One final short break and we'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Thousands of Palestinians marked May 15 as the 75th anniversary of the Nakba of 1948, when nearly 700,000 indigenous Palestinians were ethnically cleansed for their homes in historic Palestine by Zionist militias. The Nakba, an Arabic term which stands for disaster or catastrophe, was the destruction of the Palestinian society and its homeland, as it led to the permanent displacement of a majority of the Palestinian Arabs. These events are seen as the beginning of an ongoing persecution of the Palestinians at the hand of the Israeli state, which continues until today. In Ramallah, in the center of the occupied West Bank, hundreds gathered and waved flags on Palestine, black banners, and killed of returns to affirm the right of returns of the Palestinian refugees and their offspring to their pre-1948 homes. The participants then marched for Manara Square in downtown Ramallah, where a central rally was held commemorating the event.
This date is unforgettable for us, the day when the Palestinian people living in the 1948 areas were displaced. We always try to inculcate in the minds of our children that this date is unforgettable. Hopefully, God willing, the date of Palestine's independence will also be an unforgettable one. We are here to tell the occupation you expelled them in order to make them forget about their homes. You killed their elders so they'd forget about their children. But here are the children taken to streets as their parents did, keeping their covenant to return one day to their land.
For the first time, the United Nations is officially commemorating the Palestinian Nakba, an action stemming from the UN's partition of British-ruled Palestine into separate Jewish and Arab states. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas expressed his gratitude for the body's unprecedented historic resolution.
To begin with, I would like to express my gratitude for the unprecedented historic resolution to commemorate the 75th anniversary of the Palestinian Nakba that was committed by Israel against the Palestinian people and coincides with this date. The 5th of May 2023, after the Nakba has been ignored over the past years. This resolution represents a recognition by your organization of the ongoing historic injustice that the Palestinian people in 1948 and before that date and continues after.
Also Monday, Palestinian mourners took part in the funeral procession of Saleh Mohamed Sabra, age 22, in Asker refugee camp east of Nablus in the occupied West Bank. The Palestinian Health Ministry said Israeli soldiers killed Saleh Mohamed in the occupied West Bank during an Israeli attack in Nablus, and there is another Palestinian man wounded by gunfire. The Israeli army argues it returned fire after being shot up while it was conducting an operation in Nablus to prepare for a house demolition. The incident comes after a ceasefire ended 5 years of fierce Israeli shelling on Gaza, which killed at least 33 Palestinians. So far this year, the conflict has claimed the life of at least 150 Palestinians. Sudan's most recent crisis reached its 1-month mark. Civil and human rights organizations report that more than 607 deaths and 5,500 injured. The UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs backed the figures provided by civil and human rights organizations, added that in the state of West Kordofan and White Nile, 45 deaths were registered on May 8th. The United Nations also warned of the other crises resulting from the clashes between the army and the rapid support forces, that is, displacement of almost 1 million people from the war-torn region. Kenya's President William Ruto and his main opposition figure, Raila Odinga, both their positions closed together this weekend when they appeared together and talked to each other at two public events. After tense confrontation, which went from verbal accusation to street mobilizations promoted by Odinga and harshly regulated by the head of the state, the recent understanding raises the expectation of Kenyans for a rapprochement and new days of dialogue. The first major result of the easing of the opposition of the president and his opponent is Raila Odinga's decision to suspend calls for more mobilization. And we have come to the end of this issue brief. You can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok as well. For TeleSUR English, I am Heidy Maurell. Thank you for watching.